Hi guys and welcome to another video. My name is Mark, I'm an entrepreneur and property investor, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how you can grow a property portfolio from 0 to over 7 million over the course of 10 years, only investing £60,000. And I know that sounds absolutely insane, but me and Nick is my videographer for anyone who doesn't know, have sat down today and we've just developed an idea of how that might look. And before we get into the video, if you haven't already given it a like, please do. And if you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing. We're going to be giving away an investment house, and I'm sure that would certainly assist you in getting to your £7 million as well. But I'm going to show you a plan, a spreadsheet, a methodology, how absolutely anybody would be able to grow this property portfolio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get Nick to bring up the spreadsheet on the screen, and I'm going to talk in the corner, and you'll be able to see everything that I'm talking about. But if you love a spreadsheet, if you love a plan, if you love being able to see compounding working in front of you, you're going to love this video. So let's get into it. Here we go. So if you look at line 5, this is our seed income. This is the money that you're going to be investing into your property portfolio. And for the purposes of this, Nick sort of said that he could afford, between him and his partner, to invest about £1,000 a month for about 5 years, we've agreed. And over that period, we've been able to use any money that we've created from property to compound the portfolio. So those are some of the parameters before we start off of what we're working with. Beyond that, we also have to make some assumptions of the property value and how much we're going to be paying for them. So for that assumption, what we've done is we've said that we're going to be buying houses from £150,000 to £200,000. So I have to put an arbitrary figure in terms of how much it's going to cost us. And for this purposes, I've used £40,000 as the deposit, legals, furniture, whatever it might be, for us to generate around about £850 a month in net income. And at the moment, we're roughly doing that with HMOs in the areas that we're operating in. You know, we might spend a little bit more, but generate a little bit more, spend a little bit less, but generate a little bit less. But ultimately, that's about the right ratio for us at the moment. So I understand that the market will move on over time. And as the market moves on, the ratios of both of these things should also move on. And because that they're linked, we can make the assumption that if those ratios moved, then actually the end result, although might be slightly different, would still be in line with today's values, if that makes sense. And we have to use some figure, right? We don't know what's going to happen in the future. So we're going to use these arbitrary figures. Even if you stress tested it to 10% or 15%, we're still in the right sort of ballpark. So Nick's going to put in £1,000 a month, and by January 2022, as you can see in column AF, Nick would have £10,000 saved. Now that would allow him to use the 95% government mortgage scheme, which we've been talking about in a previous video, and he could buy a house of up to £200,000 with that. He wouldn't pay stamp duty because he'd be a first-time buyer, and he could buy a 3-bedroom in Northamptonshire or a 4-bedroom, and he'd be able to rent out the spare rooms and generate a net income of around about £850 a month. So in terms of starting his property portfolio off, my suggestion to Nick would be that would be an excellent way to start. It's pretty much how I started, with a high leveraged mortgage, renting out the spare rooms, and from there you can build the foundations of your portfolio. Now, Nick continues on the platform, on this spreadsheet, to contribute £1,000 a month, as well as investing this £850, all the way through till November 2023, when he has £40,000 saved up, or just over, and he invests that in property number 2. Now at this point, his net monthly rental income becomes £1,700, and we also have a refinance, as you can see here, in 2024 of £20,000. Now the reason we have that in, and another assumption that I've made, is that every property that Nick buys, after 2 years, he's going to be able to release around about £20,000. Now, I haven't put any refinances in beyond that for any of the properties. And I have to make some assumptions that property prices values will increase over time. And I understand that some years they might increase by more and some years they may increase by less. But over the course of the next decade, I expect 5 to 6% as an average to be about right, and that historically has been the case with best guess scenarios, you know, at this point. And ultimately this is a plan and they can change. But at this point, it takes Nick only another 12 months till he buys property number 3. And as you can see, in June of 2024, it's less than 12 months actually, it's more like 7 months or 8 months. In June of 2024, Nick purchases property number 3, and that adds his rental income now to £2,550. it's really starting to snowball. As you see, it takes him a further 12 months to get property number 4, or just under, and now he's got £3,400 a month. Now we need to really fast forward a little bit, because you can see that every year Nick's momentum is really starting to increase. And this is why I did a video called Your First 4 Houses Are So Critical, because at the point that you get to 4, and bear in mind it's taken Nick 4 years to get to 4 properties in this instance. Well, in the next 6 years, till 2032, until 2031, in the next 6 years, Nick purchases a further 32 properties. So there's a huge bias when you do these sort of growths and you look at compounding for the curve to be something like this. And a lot of the benefits come towards the latter end of that curve. And if Nick was to continue to compound, that curve would get ever steeper. Now, in this assumption, Nick, after 5 years in 2026, stops contributing £1,000 a month. And you might ask yourself, why at that point does it make sense to stop contributing? Now really, at the point where he's got £5,000 a month of net income, this extra £1,000 a month isn't really making much difference to the outcome. So over the next 4 years, it would take another 4 years of putting £1,000 a month, making £1,000 a month's worth of sacrifices in life in order to generate a very small increase. He would add 1 property. So without it, he would have 19 properties, and with it, he would have 20. It really doesn't make that much difference. So there is always this tipping point where adding extra contributions just doesn't really impact the outcome. So when we look at this outcome for Nick in 2031, and input yourself to Nick's position or anybody who wants to do this, but Nick would be looking at an outcome in 2031 of having £30,600 a month of net income from his property, and having a property, assuming 5% growth, the value of his properties would be £6.2 million. Furthermore, his equity within those properties would be £3.4 million. A huge amount of equity. And you can see by those numbers that he would have a huge amount of opportunity to remortgage much more heavily over those periods when he was buying. And I had to just use some sort of metric of remortgaging. I couldn't just do it as the market happens, because I'm not sure what's going to happen in the market. So the question really comes is, why do people not do this? Why doesn't everybody do something like this? Well, as somebody personally who is compounding their wealth, I can tell you that I think the main reason is that it takes so long for you to start to see the rewards from all of your sacrifices. And you really have to believe in the end product to be willing to make the sacrifices today. This is why I think the value of making a plan like this is so high, because by seeing it, putting it down, making it real, you can buy into this idea. Now, I understand investing £1,000 a month for a lot of people is a lot of money. And I also understand that people might be looking at this going, well, you're not going to generate £850 a month. Fine, change the plan to the sort of numbers that you think would work for you. And I can tell you that no matter where you change these plans, if you look at it over a 10, 15-year period, it is not that hard to become incredibly wealthy. This £1,000 a month is very easy additional income. I'll give one example, and I did a whole video on how to generate an extra £1,000 a month. But I own a taxi company. In that taxi company, we have some drivers who work just Friday and Saturday night, and in those 2 nights, they will take home around £300 a week. Well, that's £1,500 a month of extra income, of which, let's say you can invest £1,000 after tax. Well, there you go. Are you willing to give up your Friday and Saturday night for £6.5 million? The majority of people aren't, and that's the actual reality. The majority of people, even given this plan, and I have given this plan to many people, the majority of people give up after a few months. Because it's a lot of hard work, it's a lot of sacrifice today. But the reality with compounding is the whole principle is sacrificing today in order to have a better future. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's really highlighted the value of compounding and how it can really supercharge your wealth. £1,000 a month, £60,000 invested, £6.2 million worth of property bought over the course of a decade, and £3 million worth of net worth, as well as £30,000 a month of net income. I think that's worth any sacrifice. Have a look in the description. You can download this sheet. It's under the resources tab. If you want to book a call with me, feel free to do so. I don't even mind helping you do a sheet if you want to. But I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you next week. Take care.